Thank you, Chair, and I would like to thank the committee for this invitation. In 2018, I appeared before the committee as a representative of a group of EBS agents to express my concern about accounting and other irregularities within EBS. Despite letters from the Joint Committee to EBS in the matter, EBS refused to engage. A former EBS director confirmed my concerns and appeared before you to outline the consequences of these accounting irregularities. In a separate case taken by another agent to prevent termination, this agent claimed it is being terminated because it resisted pressure from EBS to adopt underhanded sales tactics for investment products. Judge Jordan ruled against EBS and noted that he was being told, and these are the judge's words, "Move along, there is nothing to see here." In his 2019 ruling, the judge called on EBS to, his words, lead by example, and adding to the quote, the judge said, "I would have thought that a competent mediator could bring sense to bear and mediate a solution to the dispute between the parties. If the parties are committed to doing business with integrity and in accordance with regulatory requirements that exist, then what possible obstacle stands in the way of both sides starting on a new page?" Sadly, the bank didn't listen, and instead in 2020 they brought the case to the Court of Appeal, and once again all three judges ruled against the bank. Today our group of EBS agents were a bit like insects caught in a spider's web. Since our last meeting and appearance before this committee in 2018, there has been no attempt by EBS to engage with any of the agents in relation to our dispute. Sadly, two of our colleagues have passed away, both of whom are in our thoughts today, along with their families. We are now over 10 years trying to get justice, and to add insult to injury, EBS will not negotiate with us, but appear to be willing to negotiate with a third party who is soliciting a fee. EBS signed contracts with us knowing that they were unable to fulfil their obligations. The result was that we could not sell mortgages, and instead EBS instructed us to sell high commission but highly unsuitable investment products, and we were told to do whatever it takes. These products were not suitable for every customer, as many customers simply didn't have a tolerance for risk. We objected to these instructions and were warned, if you report it, your life will be hell. Agents who failed to comply lost their livelihoods. Clearly, having the courage to speak out was dangerous. I welcome the protective disclosures legislation which must be transposed later this year, and hope my comments will assist. If we are to restore the integrity of the financial services industry in general, the foundation stone must be accountability. Every decision which impacts customers or customers must be traceable to the individual or individuals who make the decision. If we tackle the issue of accountability, we will at the same time tackle inequality, dishonesty and corruption within our banking system, and become a beacon of hope for the world's banks who have in recent years lost the trust of the nations, to the point that Bitcoin, with no regulation, has established itself as an acceptable currency on the world stage. Where will this end if we do not stop the rot? Sadly, whistleblowers are often seen as conspiracy theorists, troublemakers and a threat. They are exposed to bullying and retaliation, leading to financial insecurity and stress. The courts will normally ignore criticisms of regulated banks if the central bank and the ODCE has not raised any objections. Having first-hand experience, I have outlined the efforts we personally made in relation to resolution, and I would refer the committee to Exhibit 1, which includes a map, which is included in my opening statement, which is a map in relation to the activity that we have been up to. If government regulators are unwilling to act, the role of whistleblowers becomes even more important. Ireland's record of dealing with conscientious workers is extremely poor. Conscientious workers are not being publicly represented, apart from a few politicians who simply do their job. The very fact that our group exists will tell you that Ireland has a long way to go. The state's attitude is concerning. Healthy scepticism is one thing, but when you know you were correct and you were telling the truth, it's soul-destroying to be dismissed as a crank. What do we have to do to win the interests of the gatekeepers with a view to ensuring that an investigation is called in an independent and transparent manner? Personally, I must admit, I am very naive. I thought we were all on the same side. I was wrong. The powers that be are just not interested in uncovering the truth, but appear more so to be interested in covering up for their corporate cronies. The question must also be asked, why does the Garda National Economic Crime Bureau not take the lead and investigate these issues, irrespective of establishment perception? In our case, the central bank wants the issue to go away, simply because they did not do a sufficient job, and as it turns out, it was in their interest that the truth be circumvented. The Finance Minister and his department have made it clear to me and his department are never going to believe me, no matter how well the evidence is presented. And the result of all this is reputations are saved, careers are made, and society pays. The time has come for the state to exit its bunker mentality. Stop turning a blind eye. Turn over a new leaf. Engage and support those who speak up for the betterment of society. I would suggest that a dedicated, independent, anti-corruption agency should be established to tackle white-collar crime and corruption in the corporate world and political spheres. The state should also establish a fund to financially support conscientious workers who find themselves with no income, and introduce legislation which will provide free legal aid for all conscientious workers who have no alternative but to take their case to the courts for resolution. They should also introduce an incentive scheme to encourage employers, including state bodies, to employ conscientious workers who find themselves with no work and who have previously made a qualifying disclosure. And finally, I believe that very few people are aware of the 2014 Protected Disclosures Act exists, and that there is actually legal protections available. The relevant authorities need to educate people on how to use the Protected Disclosures Act safely and ensure people are aware of their protections. The state and its representatives need to educate themselves on the Act too, as and when it applies, as there appears to be some confusion among some state employees. I have personal experience of making a disclosure to a state entity and being told that my complaint did not fall within the Act under a section that I never mentioned in my original disclosure. When I appealed this decision, I highlighted the section of the Act that I believed the matter did fall within. However, my disclosure was dismissed on the grounds that it was a matter for another entity, that being the same entity which the disclosure was made against. I responded and informed the recipient that there was nothing in the legislation to allow them to evade its responsibilities where the responsible company, for whatever reason, refuses to investigate. I provided evidence where the company in question was not independent when investigating the matters that I was raising. To this day, to today, this concern remains outstanding. And the question I have for all legislators on this committee is, do you believe this behaviour is legitimate? Thank you, Chair.